The price of victory. The neural implant's crimson warning light pulsed against Commander Sarah Chen's temple as she guided her interceptor through the debris field surrounding Earth's last orbital defense platform. Status alerts crowded her heads-up display, but she ignored them all except one: the reactor core temperature of the Centauri dreadnought looming before her. "Command, this is Phoenix Lead," she transmitted, her voice steady despite the growing pressure in her skull. "Confirming primary target's shields at critical levels, requesting clearance for final approach." The response came through garbled with static. "Negative, Commander. Your neural load is beyond safe parameters. Return to base immediately." Sarah's fingers tightened around her controls as another wave of pain lanced through her head. The experimental neural interface that allowed her to pilot the advanced interceptor was slowly killing her. She knew that. But the massive Centauri vessel before her had already destroyed 3 orbital platforms and 2 major cities. If it wasn't stopped here, millions more would die. "With respect, Command, we won't get another shot at this." She rolled her interceptor to avoid a chunk of twisted metal, the neural interface translating her thoughts into instant action. "The dreadnought's core is destabilizing. One good hit now could trigger a chain reaction." "Commander Chen, this is General Rivera. That's a direct order. Your implant is redlining. If you push it any further, the neural damage will be irreversible." Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she accelerated toward the dreadnought. "Then I better make this count, sir." She killed her comm unit before they could respond. The Centauri vessel grew larger in her viewport, its organic-looking hull scarred from previous attacks. Its point defense systems tracked her approach, filling space with plasma bolts, but Sarah flew through them as if in a dance, each maneuver executed with impossible precision through the neural interface. Warning klaxons blared as her implant's temperature continued to rise. The pain was becoming unbearable, but Sarah forced herself to focus on the target. The dreadnought's reactor core pulsed like a dying star, visible through a breach in its armor. The culmination of a battle that had lasted 3 days and cost thousands of lives. Her vision began to blur, red creeping in at the edges. The neural interface was burning out, taking her brain with it. But she was close enough now. Sarah reached out with one trembling hand and activated her interceptor's last remaining Nova torpedo. "Maya," she whispered, thinking of her 16-year-old daughter waiting planetside. "I'm sorry." The torpedo launched just as her neural implant overloaded. White-hot agony exploded through Sarah's skull as her consciousness fractured like shattered glass. Her last coherent thought was of her daughter's face as the torpedo struck home. The Centauri dreadnought's reactor going critical in a blast that lit up Earth's orbit like a newborn sun. 3 months later, in an underground medical facility near what remained of Singapore, Dr. Elena Santos stared at the readouts from her patient's neural scan. Commander Chen's broken body had been recovered from her mostly intact interceptor. But her mind. "The damage is extensive," she explained to General Rivera, who stood watching the unconscious commander through an observation window. The neural interface literally burned through large sections of her brain. "The fact that she's alive at all is remarkable." "Can you save her?" Rivera asked, his weathered face grave. "Maybe. We've developed an experimental procedure using Centauri biotechnology recovered from the dreadnought. We can rebuild the damaged neural pathways, but..." She hesitated. "The process is imperfect. Memory and personality fragmentation is likely. She may not be the same person who went up in that interceptor." Rivera was quiet for a long moment, watching the slow rise and fall of Sarah's chest. "The Centauri are regrouping. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for another push. We need every experienced pilot we can get, especially ones who've demonstrated they can interface with the new neural systems. Sir, even if the procedure works, she won't be fit for combat duty. The psychological risks alone." "Doctor," Rivera's tone was final. "Do what you have to do. That's an order." Santos looked down at her tablet, at the complex web of damaged neural pathways that represented Sarah Chen's fractured mind. "Yes, sir. I'll begin preparations immediately." In her darkened hospital room, Sarah Chen dreamed. She dreamed of fire in her mind and stars wheeling overhead. She dreamed of a daughter's face, but the features kept shifting, blurring, until she couldn't quite remember what they were supposed to look like. She dreamed of war and sacrifice and duty. And somewhere, in the deepest recesses of her broken consciousness, something alien began to take root and grow. Maya Chen sat in her bedroom in the underground shelter, watching the news feeds about her mother's heroic sacrifice with dry eyes. She didn't believe it, couldn't believe it. The official story said Commander Chen's interceptor had been destroyed in the explosion, but Maya had inherited her mother's stubborn streak. Until she saw a body, there was still hope. She ran her fingers over the acceptance letter from the Earth Defense Force Academy. She'd received it the day before the Centauri attack, and her mother had been so proud. Now, as Maya stared at the formal language offering her a place in the pilot training program, she felt a new sense of purpose crystallize in her heart. She would find out what really happened to her mother. And if Sarah Chen was still alive somewhere out there, Maya would bring her home, no matter the cost. In the medical facility, Dr. Santos initiated the neural reconstruction procedure. As Centauri biotechnology merged with human neural tissue, Sarah Chen's vital signs remained stable. But behind her closed eyelids, her eyes began to move rapidly, as if watching scenes only she could see. And in the depths of her fragmenting consciousness, memories began to shift and change like sand in a storm. The war for Earth had been won. But for Sarah Chen and her daughter, a much more personal battle was just beginning. A daughter's search. 5 years later, the combat simulator pod hummed as Maya Chen executed a perfect barrel roll, her neural interface translating thought to action with microsecond precision. 3 Centauri fighters exploded in her wake, their holographic debris scattering across her viewport. But it was the 4th ship that held her attention, a larger vessel moving with eerily familiar patterns. "Target locked," she murmured, her heart racing as she recognized the maneuver the enemy ship was about to attempt. She'd seen it countless times in archived footage of her mother's battles. The ship began a complex spiral dive, just as she predicted. Maya smiled grimly and triggered her interceptor's forward guns a half-second before the enemy ship reached its dodge point. The simulation dissolved in a flash of light as a klaxon signaled the end of the exercise. "Simulation complete," the AI announced. "New record established. Time to completion: 3 minutes, 47 seconds. The pod's canopy lifted with a hydraulic hiss, revealing Captain James Rodriguez, Maya's flight instructor, standing nearby with a thoughtful expression. "That last kill," he said, helping her disconnect from the neural interface. "That wasn't in the standard combat database." "No, sir." Maya climbed out of the pod, her flight suit dark with sweat. "It was one of my mother's techniques. I've studied every recording of her missions I could find." Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Even 5 years after the Battle of Earth's orbit, Commander Sarah Chen's sacrifice remained legendary among the Earth Defense Force. "Your mother was the best pilot we ever had, Chen, but you can't keep chasing her ghost." Maya met his gaze steadily. "With respect, sir, I'm not chasing ghosts. I'm following leads." She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer, showing a series of incident reports from the Perseus armed colonies. 3 attacks in the past month, each one carried out with precision strikes against critical infrastructure. Minimal civilian casualties, maximum strategic impact. She highlighted footage from a security camera, showing a brief glimpse of a figure in sleek combat armor. The tactics, the efficiency, it all matches her operational style. "Maya," Rodriguez sighed. "We've been through this. Commander Chen's interceptor was destroyed. The explosion from the Dreadnought's reactor core. They never found a body." Maya interrupted. "And these attacks? Sir, look at the flight patterns. The neural interface coordination required for maneuvers like these, there are only a handful of pilots who could pull them off, and one of them is supposed to be dead. Before Rodriguez could respond, both their comm units chimed with a priority alert. Maya's heart skipped as she read the message. Another attack, this time on the quantum communications relay at Nueva Santiago. But this one was still in progress. Scramble all available pilots, Rodriguez barked into his comm as they ran toward the hangar. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. 20 minutes later, Maya's interceptor dropped out of quantum space above Nueva Santiago. The colony's massive communications array hung in high orbit, its delicate lattice of quantum entanglement receivers crucial for maintaining faster-than-light communication across human space. A sleek assault ship was docked with the main control hub, its design unlike anything in known space. Phoenix Squadron, form up. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. Chen, you're my wing. Standard containment. Interceptor forward, maneuvering alongside her mother's drifting vessel. Through the viewport, she could see Sarah slumped in her pilot's seat, the Centauri biotech on her face dark and lifeless. But as Maya prepared to dock and board, her mother's organic eye opened. The look inside was pure Sarah Chen. No programming, no artificial imperatives, just a mother's love and a soldier's determination. EDF security forces incoming, her mother managed, her voice weak but clear. 5 minutes. Get Kane. Stop the program. I'll hold on. As long as I can. Maya's hands trembled on her controls. I can't leave you. Not again. You have to. Sarah smiled. A real smile, despite the pain. You were right about everything, Maya. Now finish it. Make it count. As EDF reinforcements began dropping out of quantum space, Maya made the hardest choice of her life. With tears streaming down her face, she set course for Kane's command ship, leaving her mother behind once again. But this time, she knew exactly what she was fighting for, and nothing in the universe would stop her from coming back. Remember me. Maya's interceptor screamed through the void toward Kane's command ship, her mother's sacrifice burning like fusion fire in her heart. The massive vessel hummed against the starfield, its hybrid human Centauri design a testament to Kane's betrayal. Her neural interface hummed with battle fury as she dodged defensive fire, each maneuver a reflection of her mother's teachings. Security breach in Hangar Bay 3. An automated voice announced throughout Kane's ship. Unknown neural signature detected. In the command center, Director Kane watched Maya's approach with cold calculation. Fascinating, he murmured, studying the neural pattern readings. The daughter's every bit as impressive as the mother. He turned to his security chief. Prepare the prototype defenses. Let's see how she handles our latest improvements. Maya burst from her interceptor's cockpit, her combat suit's shields deflecting stun blasts from security drones. The hangar bay was chaos. Emergency sirens, flashing lights, and the acrid smell of weapons fire. But Maya moved with deadly purpose, each action precise and measured despite her racing heart. Her neural interface connected seamlessly with the ship's systems, just as her mother had taught her. Security protocols crumbled before her assault as she fought her way deeper into the vessel. But something felt wrong. The resistance was too light, too predictable. Impressive work, Lieutenant Chen. Kane's voice echoed through the corridors. You've exceeded all performance metrics, just like your mother. You used her, Maya snarled, ducking behind a bulkhead as another wave of security forces approached. Turned her into a weapon against her own people. I gave her purpose, Kane replied. The same purpose I'm offering you. Your neural compatibility ratings are extraordinary. Together, we could reshape humanity's future. Maya's response was to unleash a viral code attack through her neural interface, shutting down life support in non-critical sections of the ship. As emergency bulkheads slammed shut, she advanced toward the command center. You don't understand, Kane continued, his voice taking on an almost paternal tone. The Centauri showed us the truth. Humanity is chaos, destruction. We need guidance, control. Your mother understood that, in the end. No, Maya countered, her voice steel. She broke free, showed me what you really are. She reached the command center's sealed doors, her neural interface engaging with the security systems. But as the doors slid open, Maya's heart stopped. The chamber beyond was empty except for a holographic projection of Cain. Did you really think I'd make it that easy? His image smiled. I've had 5 years to perfect the technology we used on your mother. The neural control systems have evolved. And you, my dear, have just walked into the next phase of our operation. Maya felt it then. A subtle shift in the ship's electromagnetic field. Her neural interface began to burn as foreign code assaulted her consciousness. She fell to her knees, fighting against the invasion of her mind. Don't resist, Cain urged. The integration will be much smoother if you accept it. Just ask your mother. Maya. Sarah Chen's voice, weak but determined, came through Maya's combat suit comm. The override. Remember the override. Maya's vision blurred as the foreign code threatened to overwhelm her. But her mother's words triggered a memory. A childhood lesson in the simulator, Sarah teaching her emergency shutdown procedures. Neural interfaces are tools, her mother had said. Never let them become more than that. Never let them control you. With the last of her strength, Maya initiated the emergency override. Not just of her neural interface, but of every system on the ship. As klaxons blared and lights flickered, she felt the foreign code's assault weaken. Protocol. Do not let that ship escape. Maya acknowledged the order, but her attention was fixed on the enemy vessel. Its movements as it detached from the station were fluid, precise, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. The neural interface at her temple hummed as she pushed her interceptor to match the unknown ship's course. Sir, she transmitted. Request permission to attempt contact. Negative, Chen. Weapons free. Take it down. The enemy ship accelerated suddenly, executing a complex series of maneuvers that Maya had only ever seen in old combat footage. Her hands trembled slightly as she followed, matching the ship turn for turn. This is Lieutenant Maya Chen of the Earth Defense Force. She broadcast on all frequencies, ignoring Rodriguez's curse. Commander Sarah Chen. Mom, if that's you, please respond. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice came through, distorted and strange, but with undertones that made Maya's heart stop. Lieutenant Chen. Maya. Stand down. You don't understand what you're involving yourself in. Mom. Maya's voice cracked. It is you. What happened? Where have you been? Maya. Break off pursuit now. Her mother's voice was harder now, almost mechanical. This is your only warning. Like hell, Maya growled, pushing her interceptor closer. I spent 5 years looking for you. I'm not letting you disappear again. The enemy ship's engines flared. Then you leave me no choice. What followed was a dance of light and shadow as the two ships wove through space, each maneuver more precise than the last. Maya felt her neural interface burning as she pushed it to keep up, matching her mother's movements with everything she'd learned from studying her techniques. But Sarah Chen had been the best pilot in the fleet, and even 5 years later, even changed by whatever had happened to her, she was still formidable. Maya's proximity alarm screamed as her mother's ship executed an impossible turn, bringing its weapons to bear. Mom, please, Maya transmitted. Whatever happened to you, whatever they did to you, we can fix it. Just come home. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Maya thought she saw her mother's ship hesitate. Then a quantum wake signature bloomed on her sensors, a second ship arriving. Before Maya could react, a massive electrical surge erupted from the new arrival, washing over her interceptor in a wave of crackling energy. Her neural interface exploded in pain as her ship's systems went dark. The last thing Maya saw before losing consciousness was her mother's ship vanishing into quantum space, leaving her with more questions than answers and the bitter taste of failure in her mouth. When she awoke in the medical bay hours later, Maya stared at the ceiling with grim determination. She had found her mother, proof that she'd been right all along. But the woman who had raised her, who had taught her to fly, who had sacrificed everything to save Earth, was now working with the enemy. The question was, why? Maya touched the neural interface at her temple, remembering Dr. Santos' words years ago about experimental procedures and Centauri technology. Whatever had been done to her mother, whatever had turned her against her own people, Maya would find out. And she would bring Sarah Chen home, or die trying. The commander's shadow. In the depths of a hidden facility orbiting Proxima Centauri, Sarah Chen stood before a wall of holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the Nueva Santiago raid. Her own face stared back at her from one screen, or rather, what remained of it. The right side was a lattice of iridescent Centauri biotech that pulsed with each heartbeat, a visible reminder of what she had become. You hesitated. A cold voice observed from the shadows. Director Kane stepped into view, his augmented eyes gleaming with disapproval. The quantum relay was only partially compromised. And you let them track you. The mission parameters were achieved. Sarah responded mechanically, but something inside her twisted at the memory of Maya's voice. The communication grid is destabilized. Their response times will be compromised for the next offensive. That's not the point, Agent Zero. Kane moved closer, studying her face. Your encounter with the EDF pilot triggered anomalous patterns in your neural architecture, specifically when she claimed to be your daughter. Sarah's artificial eye wavered as she focused on a distant point. A tactical ploy. Nothing more. Is it? Kane gestured, and new images appeared. Surveillance footage of Maya growing up, graduating from the academy, excelling in combat simulations. Maya Chen has spent 5 years searching for her mother. Her dedication is impressive and troubling. Something flickered in Sarah's organic eye, a flash of emotion quickly suppressed. She is irrelevant to the mission. On the contrary, Kane's smile was razor-thin. She represents a significant security. This is a restricted zone. Her mother's voice cut through the silence of space. Turn back now, Lieutenant. Maya's hands tightened on her controls as she spotted her mother's ship emerging from behind the station. You know I can't do that, Mom. Not until I understand why you're doing this. Understanding isn't required. Only compliance. Sarah's voice was cold, mechanical, but Maya detected something else beneath the artificial tone. Strain, as if each word was a struggle. The woman who raised me would never say that, Maya replied, keeping her interceptor just outside weapons range. She taught me to question everything, to fight for what I believed in. What did they do to you? The response was a burst of weapons fire that Maya barely evaded. Her neural interface hummed as she pushed her ship through a series of defensive maneuvers, matching her mother's tactics with everything she'd learned from studying her old mission recordings. Your neural patterns are remarkably similar to my original configuration, Sarah observed, her ship dancing through space with lethal grace. But you lack the improvements, the clarity of purpose. You mean the programming. Maya executed a hard turn, bringing her ship alongside her mother's. I accessed Dr. Santos's files, Mom. I know about the experimental procedure, the Centauri biotechnology they used to rebuild your mind. But it wasn't just repair work, was it? They changed you. Sarah's ship suddenly went still. Director Kane showed me the truth. The Centauri came in peace. Earth's leaders chose war. Everything I do serves humanity's greater good. Is that you talking, or your programming? Maya's voice softened. I found something else in Santos's files. The Centauri tech they used. It was designed for control, not healing. They turned you into a weapon, Mom, against your own people. No. Sarah's voice wavered. You're trying to confuse me, to compromise my mission. I'm trying to save you. Maya's neural interface burned as she pushed it to its limits, matching her mother's every move. Remember who you are. Remember the morning before your last mission, when you helped me prepare for my academy interview. You told me that being a pilot wasn't about following orders blindly. It was about protecting what matters most. Sarah's ship jerked erratically, its movements becoming less precise. Stop, please. You made me promise to always trust my instincts, even when everyone else said I was wrong. Maya blinked back tears as she continued. My instincts told me you were alive. They're telling me now that the real you is still in there, fighting to break free. A warning klaxon blared through Maya's cockpit as multiple quantum wake signatures appeared around the station. A dozen ships dropped out of quantum space. Kane's backup plan. Agent Zero. Kane's voice cut through all frequencies. Execute your primary directive. Eliminate the target. Maya watched in horror as her mother's ship turned toward her, weapons charging. But the expected attack never came. Instead, Sarah's voice returned, different this time. Stronger, more human. Maya, listen carefully, she said. Her words rushed. Kane lied. The Centauri leadership never wanted peace. He's working with a splinter faction, using their tech to create human weapons they can control. The neural upgrades, they're not improvements, they're chains. Sarah, Kane's voice was sharp. Remember your programming. Remember your purpose. I remember everything now, Sarah replied. Her ship moved to position itself between Maya and the approaching hostile vessels. I remember who I am, what I am, and what matters most. Maya's sensors detected a massive power surge from her mother's ship. Mom, what are you doing? The neural interface connects directly to the ship's systems, Sarah explained, her voice tight with concentration. If I overload it like I did 5 years ago, the feedback pulse should disrupt their control signals. But, she hesitated, the damage to my neural architecture will be catastrophic. No. Maya's heart raced as she understood her mother's plan. There has to be another way. Maya, listen to me. Sarah's voice was gentle now, fully her own. I'm so proud of you. You never gave up on me, even when everyone else did. But I need you to do something else now. I need you to live. Before Maya could respond, Sarah's ship erupted with electromagnetic energy. The pulse washed over the battlefield like a tsunami, shorting out systems and scrambling neural interfaces. Maya's own systems flickered but held, her standard-issue interface protected from the worst of the surge. Through her failing sensors, Maya watched as the hostile ships began to drift, their crews incapacitated by the destruction of their Centauri neural tech. Kane's voice cut out mid-curse. But her mother's ship. Mom. Maya called out, desperation in her voice. Mom, please respond. There was no answer. Maya pushed her. Risk. Her neural interface capabilities nearly match your own. She's been studying your techniques, your patterns. She came closer to intercepting you than anyone has in 5 years. Sarah remained silent, fighting the surge of foreign emotions that threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed mental barriers. The Centauri biotechnology that had saved her life and rebuilt her broken mind had also changed her, programming her with new imperatives, new loyalties. But lately, the walls between what she was and what she had been were growing thinner. The next phase requires absolute commitment, Kane continued. We cannot afford any complications. You will eliminate Lieutenant Chen at the first opportunity. For a fraction of a second, Sarah's organic hand twitched. Deep in her fragmented consciousness, a memory surfaced, a teenage Maya in a flight simulator, her face lit with joy as she executed her first perfect landing. The image brought with it a wave of something that felt like pain, but different, deeper. Is there a problem, Agent Zero? Sarah forced the memory down, letting the cold clarity of her programming reassert itself. No, Director. I understand my objectives. Good. Kane turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Sarah, remember, what we do for the survival of humanity. The Centauri aren't our enemies. They're our salvation. After he left, Sarah remained motionless, staring at the image of her daughter's face. The biotechnology in her brain hummed, trying to process conflicting signals. She remembered the battle above Earth, the Nova torpedo's launch, the searing pain as her neural interface overloaded. She remembered waking up in the hidden facility, Kane explaining how the Centauri had been reaching out in peace, how hardliners in Earth's government had pushed for war instead. She remembered believing him. The Centauri biotechnology that saved her had shown her the truth, or at least, what she had been programmed to believe was the truth. Humanity needed guidance, needed to be saved from its own destructive impulses. The attacks she led weren't acts of war, but surgical interventions to prevent greater bloodshed. But now, looking at Maya's face, something else stirred in Sarah's reconstructed memories. The smell of her daughter's hair when she hugged her goodbye that last morning. The sound of her laughter. The fierce pride she'd felt watching Maya follow in her footsteps. Sarah's organic eye blinked rapidly as her neural interface registered mounting instability. She accessed her combat protocols, trying to focus on the mission, on her programming. But for the first time in 5 years, the cold certainty that had driven her began to crack. In her quarters later, Sarah stood before a mirror, studying the divide between flesh and technology that marked her face. She reached up with her organic hand, touching the smooth metal and crystal that had replaced half of her skull. The Centauri biotech pulsed beneath her fingers, sending waves of calming signals through her neural network. But the calm felt artificial now, imposed rather than natural. She accessed her neural interface's diagnostic systems, scanning through layers of code and consciousness that defined her current existence. Somewhere in the quantum-entangled pathways of her hybrid mind, a question began to form. If her memories of being a mother were real, what else about her programming might be false? A priority alert interrupted her thoughts. Long-range sensors had detected a quantum wake signature matching Maya's interceptor, approaching a research outpost in the Epsilon Eridani system. Sarah felt her combat protocols engaging automatically, overlaying tactical data across her vision. Agent Zero, Kane's voice came through her internal comm. You have your orders. Sarah closed her eyes, both organic and artificial, and made a decision that would change everything. Acknowledged, Director. Initiating pursuit. But as she headed for her ship, Sarah began a deep scan of her neural architecture, searching for something she hadn't dared look for in 5 years. The truth about what had really happened during her reconstruction. Whether Maya truly was a threat to their cause, or if the real threat was what had been done to Sarah herself. She would find her answers. And if Kane had lied to her, if her programming was based on deception rather than truth, then humanity wasn't the only thing that would need saving. But first, she had to face her daughter again. And this time, the encounter would end very differently. Convergence. The Epsilon Eridani research outpost hung against the star's amber light, its massive arrays collecting data on stellar phenomena. But Maya Chen wasn't interested in the science station's official purpose. Her deep scan had detected unusual quantum signatures emanating from the facility's core, signatures that matched the Centauri biotechnology in her mother's neural interface. No, Kane's hologram flickered. What are you doing? Finishing what my mother started, Maya growled. Through her neural link, she could feel the ship's quantum core beginning to destabilize. This ends now. You'll die too, Kane warned. The overload will fry every neural system on this ship, including yours. Maya smiled grimly. Maybe, but I made a promise to make it count. As emergency alerts screamed through the ship, Maya redirected all remaining power to her neural interface. Pain lanced through her skull as she pushed beyond safety limits, just as her mother had done 5 years ago. But this time, the target wasn't a Centauri dreadnought. It was the very code that had enslaved her mother. Through the quantum-entangled networks that connected Kane's operation, Maya unleashed a viral payload. The code spread like wildfire, corrupting and destroying the neural control systems that Kane had spent years perfecting. Across the sector, his agents would be freed from their programming, their true memories restored. Maya. Her mother's voice cut through the chaos. EDF ships approaching. Get out of there. But Maya wasn't done. Through failing sensors, she detected Kane's actual location, an escape pod launching from the ship's lower hull. With the last of her strength, she locked the pod's guidance systems. "This is Lieutenant Maya Chen." She broadcast on all frequencies. "Target locked. Fire at will." The pod disappeared in a flash of weapons fire from the approaching EDF vessels. Maya smiled as darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. She had done it. Kane was dead, his network destroyed. Her mother was avenged. "Maya." Sarah's voice was desperate now. "Stay with me, baby. Please." Maya tried to respond, but her neural interface was burning out, taking her consciousness with it. As her eyes closed, she remembered her mother's words from so long ago. "What matters most is not how we fall, but how we rise again." 3 months later, in the same underground medical facility where Sarah Chen had been transformed, Maya opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was her mother's face, whole again, the Centauri technology replaced with regenerated human tissue. "Welcome back, pilot," Sarah said softly, squeezing her daughter's hand. Maya tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. She reached for her neural interface, only to find it gone. "Dr. Santos removed it," Sarah explained. "Both of ours. The damage was too severe. We'll never fly combat missions again." Maya would have cried, but her mother was smiling. But Sarah continued, "It turns out we're pretty good instructors. The Academy needs people who understand both the potential and the dangers of neural interface technology. People who can teach the next generation of pilots to stay human, no matter what." Maya squeezed her mother's hand back, feeling truly at peace for the first time in 5 years. They had lost much, but they had gained something more precious, a second chance, not just as pilots or soldiers, but as mother and daughter. Outside the medical facility, Earth's sun rose over a horizon unscarred by war. Humanity had faced its trial by fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united. And in a quiet hospital room, 2 women who had sacrificed everything to save it began the long journey of healing. Together.